All right, let's start with a scenario that I think is going to be painfully familiar to, well, pretty much everyone listening.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, you've been in your job for, let's say, 5 years. You know the place inside and out. You know which printer jams if you so much as look at it the wrong way.
Oh, I know that printer.
Right. You know exactly how to handle that one client who always calls at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. You understand the unspoken political map of the office better than your own family tree.
You're the one with all the institutional knowledge, the stuff you just can't write down in a manual.
Exactly that. Now, here's the thing. Imagine I ask you to go and pull up your official job description, the one HR has on file.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the one you applied with 5 years ago. Does the document, does it bear any resemblance at all to the reality of what you do every single day?
I think for the vast majority of people in the modern workforce, the answer is a hard, resounding no.
No.
There is a huge disconnect there.
It's usually just a list of generic buzzwords, isn't it? Must have good communication skills.
Must be a team player.
Proficient in Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so vague that it's almost completely meaningless. And that disconnect is exactly what we are going to unpack today. We're calling it the resume versus reality gap.
It really is the universal frustration of the workplace.
Yeah.
And we have a fascinating stack of documents in front of us today. We've got technical manuals, philosophical breakdowns, case studies, all centered around this system called MYSKILLSManager.
Right.
But I want to be really clear right from the start. Don't let that name fool you. We aren't just talking about a piece of HR software here. This is a critique of how the entire modern workforce is built and measured.
The core argument they're making is it's pretty aggressive, actually. It basically says that organizations, by and large, have no idea how to clearly describe what they need.
On the flip side of that, workers have no real structured way to prove what they can actually do.
So we're all just kind of guessing
Mm.
and hoping for the best.
That's a very fair assessment. And to explain this, the source material uses a metaphor that I think is just incredibly effective. They talk about the backpack.
I loved this visual. It stuck with me immediately.
It's powerful, isn't it? The idea is that every single person, I don't care if you're the CEO, the barista downstairs, a brain surgeon, you walk into work every single day wearing an invisible backpack.
Okay.
And inside that backpack is this unique kind of jumbled blend of things. You have your formal skills, sure, your degree, but you also have your experiences, your School of Hard Knocks lessons, that time you had to lead a project through a crisis.
Or even some course you took 10 years ago that you've half forgotten.
Exactly. It's everything you know and everything you can do.
But the problem is no one can see inside it.
That's the problem. For the longest time, employers haven't had a way to just unzip that backpack and look inside.
They just see the patches you've sewn on the outside, right? Like university graduate or certified welder.
Oh, they're ex-Google.
Yeah, ex-Google. They see the labels, not the actual contents of the backpack.
Precisely. They rely on proxies for skill rather than the skill itself.
Right.
And that brings us to the mission of this deep dive. We're looking at a system that proposes a new skills language.
A new language.
The argument here is that the old way of looking at qualifications, what they call the competency model, is fundamentally broken, or at the very least, severely limited.
Okay, broken how? Because competency sounds like a pretty solid standard to me. I definitely want a competent pilot flying my plane.
Of course you do. And competency has its place. But in the training world, the world most of us live in, competency is usually binary. It's a light switch.
On or off.
Exactly. You pass the test, or you failed. You have the degree, or you don't. You are competent, or you are not competent. It doesn't really allow for any nuance.
It paints the world in black and white.
Correct. But the source material argues that the real world isn't binary. It's analog. It's a spectrum. And they make a really critical distinction between competency, which is, can you do the task, and performance.
And performance is what?
Performance is, how well do you apply that skill in a specific, often shifting context.
Right. So if we stick with that pilot analogy, competency is having the license to fly the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Performance is landing that same plane in a heavy crosswind with one engine out while calmly talking to air traffic control.
Exactly. It is the application of the skill under pressure and in a real-world context. That is the leap we are exploring today. And just to set the scene, we have to understand the scale of this issue. The source material uses Australia as its main case study, but these numbers, they really reflect a global trend.
Okay, let's hear the numbers.
So you have a workforce of about 14 million people in this particular context. Now, around 44% of them have university degrees.
Okay.
Another 27% have vocational qualifications, so TAFE certificates, trade papers, that sort of thing.
That sounds like a pretty educated workforce, all things considered.
It is, but here's the kicker. 29% of that workforce has no formal qualifications at all.
Wow, that's nearly a third of the entire working population. We're talking millions of people.
Millions. And under the current label system, those people, they look like they have empty backpacks. But we know that isn't true, right? They might be brilliant at their jobs. They might have 20 years of experience running complex logistics or managing difficult teams or solving engineering problems on the fly.
But because they don't have that piece of paper,
That value is invisible to the market.
that's a massive tragedy of wasted potential. You've got people who are literally trapped in lower-paying roles just because they can't prove what they know.
Exactly. And that is the aha moment this whole system is chasing. What if? What if we could give legitimate, recognized workplace qualifications to that 29% and, frankly, better clarity to everyone else? Not by sending them back to school for 3 years,
But by what?
but by extracting data from the work they're already doing every single day.
So you're turning the daily grind into a transcript.
That's the promise.
Okay, but before we get into the how, because there's some really interesting mechanics in here involving spider webs and algorithms later on, we need to talk about the philosophy. Because reading through these documents, I got the sense this isn't just about making better lists. This is about redefining why we work.
It really is. The documents open with a very human stance. They acknowledge that, yes, we work for income, that's survival, that's the baseline. We all have bills to pay.
Of course.
But we also work for purpose, for identity, for challenge, and for connection.
I love that distinction they make. It separates surviving from thriving.
And that concept of real work is absolutely central here. The source argues that we need to move away from just training for compliance.
Yeah.
Did you check the box, and start training for performance? And they actually draw a direct parallel to elite sport.
Oh, I saw this in the notes. The high-performance algorithm. That sounds pretty intense. How does my 9-to-5 office job relate to an Olympic athlete?
I know it sounds like a stretch, but think about it. How does an elite athlete train? They don't just practice aimlessly. They don't just go out and run around until they get tired.
Oh, everything is measured.
Everything is measured. They have a process goal system. They measure incremental improvements. They analyze their performance under pressure.
Right. A sprinter is going to run differently on a dry track versus a wet track. They have to adjust for the context.
Exactly. And they have a constant real-time feedback loop. This system claims to be grounded in that exact same science. The argument is that we've never really built that feedback loop for the regular workplace. We have the school bucket over here where you learn theory, and the work bucket over here where you just survive and execute, but there's no real bridge between them.
This is what the source refers to as the ontology of work.
Right. Yes, ontology. It's a bit of a $10 word, but in this context, it just means the infrastructure of reality. The argument is that while we've invested billions in training infrastructure, schools, universities, online courses, we never built the infrastructure that connects that learning to actual job performance.
So we're producing people who are book smart but can't navigate the chaos of a real office.
Or, and this is just as important, the other way around, people who are incredibly street smart and effective at their job, but they can't get promoted because they lack the book smart credentials.
Right.
The current binary system, competent versus not competent, it just flattens human potential. It completely ignores variation.
And variation is where all the magic happens.
That's it. The new insight here, the big idea, is that variation is key. It's not about whether you have the skill or you don't. It's about the degree of context of application knowledge.
Which is a very fancy way of saying, I know you can drive a car, but can you drive a Formula One car in the pouring rain?
Or, can you drive a forklift in a quiet, empty warehouse versus on a busy construction site with uneven ground and people walking around? The skill is the same, driving, but the context changes the performance requirement entirely.
Okay, so if we're throwing out the old binary competent, not competent model, we need a new vocabulary to describe all this variation. If I can't just say I'm a competent writer, what am I supposed to say?
This is where we get into what they call the 14 universal performance skills.
I have to admit I was pretty skeptical when I first read this part. Just 14. For every single job on Earth, that seems incredibly reductive. Surely a brain surgeon uses different skills than a graphic designer.
You would absolutely think so, wouldn't you? But this system argues that if you boil work down to its absolute foundation, if you look at the atomic elements of employment, there are only 14. They are the primary colors of work.
Okay, lay them on me. What are some of them?
Well, you have the obvious functional ones, right? Technology, communication, planning and organizing, problem solving.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. Then you get the more behavioral ones. Sales and customer service, teamwork, initiative and enterprise, self-management.
Okay, I can see self-management being universal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether you're the CEO or the janitor, you need to show up and do the work without someone standing over your shoulder all day.
Exactly. And whether you are that brain surgeon or the graphic designer, you need to problem solve. You need to use technology. The mix changes dramatically, but the ingredients are the same.
But wait, hang on. Saying a CEO and a janitor both use problem solving feels a little broad. How do we tell the difference? Because, solving a spill in the hallway is very different from solving a hostile takeover bid.
And that is the secret sauce of this system. It's not just the list of 14 skills. It's something they call word pictures.
Word pictures. I like the sound of that. Sounds like we're painting a portrait of the job.
That is a perfect way to describe it. A word picture is essentially a translator. It takes those invisible skills, like problem solving, and makes them visible by describing two things: the tacit and the explicit.
Let's break those down. Tacit being the stuff that's inside your head, the unspoken knowledge.
Yes. The know why, the intuition you build up over years and years. And then the explicit is the application, the know-how, or what you actually do with your hands or your voice. The source gives a fantastic example of this using an earth-moving operator.
I remember this one. This really made it all click for me. Walk us through the difference between a rookie operator and a total pro using these word pictures.
Okay, so let's look at the technology skill for an earth-moving operator. At a low level, say level 1 or 2, the word picture for their tacit knowledge might be something like identification and appreciation.
Meaning what exactly?
Yeah.
This big yellow thing is a bulldozer.
Basically, it means I know what the steering wheel does, I know what this joystick does, I understand the basic purpose of the machine.
And the explicit application at that level.
Simple movements, moving forward, moving back, stopping. It's functional, but basic.
Okay, so that's the rookie. Now what about the expert?
Now let's jump to level 4, the seasoned expert. The skill category is still technology. It's the same bucket. But the word picture for the tacit knowledge completely changes to coordinate application.
Okay.
The text actually says, demonstrating proven specialized knowledge of selecting and implementing appropriate operational strategies for complex earth-moving projects.
Wow. Okay, that is a very, very different sentence. That isn't just, I know what the button does. That is, I know how this specific machine interacts with the unique geology of this site to achieve a complex engineering outcome.
Exactly. And the explicit application. Now you're using advanced GPS and automation tools to optimize the movements of an entire fleet of vehicles or resolve highly specialized challenges on a massive mining site.
It's a huge difference. It's the same technology skill, but the word picture proves that one person is a novice and the other is basically a dirt-moving artist.
And the so what here, the big takeaway is that this creates a shared language. The CEO and the cleaner can now look at each other and understand that they're both playing the same game, just at different levels of intensity and in different contexts.
It democratizes the entire conversation about skills. It's not, I have a degree and you don't. It's, I'm operating at a level 5 in strategic planning, and you're operating at a level 5 in physical coordination and safety.
Precisely. Now, understanding the philosophy and the vocabulary is great, but how do you actually build this kind of profile for a person or a job? This is where we get into the architecture of the system, the J.O.B code and the skill code.
Okay, let's break these down, because the terminology is pretty catchy. J.O.B code versus skill code. I'm guessing the J.O.B code is the ideal version of the role.
The J.O.B code is the expectation. It is the digital fingerprint of the role itself. And the source material describes a 3-step method to create a J.O.B code in just 3 minutes.
3 minutes. That is wildly faster than trying to write a traditional job description from scratch.
It's designed to be incredibly rapid. Step 1, you just enter the job title.
Yeah.
Step 2, you select the closest match from a big database of 421 job classifications. They call them OSCA classifications.
OSCA. Sounds like a friendly robot.
It stands for Occupational Skills Analysis. It's basically a huge library of role templates. And then step 3, this is the important part. You choose the blended word pictures for each of those 14 skills.
So you're customizing it. You decide, does this specific job need level 3 communication or does it need level 5?
Exactly. Does it need level 0 financial planning or level 4?
Wait, you said level 0.
Yes. And it's important to acknowledge that some jobs just don't require certain skills. If you're a solitary night watchman, your teamwork requirement might legitimately be level 0 or level 1, and that's okay. The system rates all these expectations on a 0 to 5 scale.
Okay, so what do those levels mean?
Level 0 is no skills required. Level 3 is roughly equivalent to, say, a trade certificate IVSO, practical implementation. And level 5 is excellent, advanced, specialized knowledge.
So once you've built this J.O.B code, you have a really clear objective picture of what the role should be. It's the target you're aiming for.
Correct. And then you have the skill code.
The reality.
The reality. This is the individual worker's profile, their DNA data, as the source calls it.
And looking at the visuals in the source material, the skill code looks like a spider web, doesn't it? Or maybe a radar chart.
Yes, they call it a performance graph. Imagine a circle with 14 spokes coming out from the center, one for each skill. You then plot where the worker currently sits on each of those spokes.
So if I'm great at talking, but terrible at math, my web is going to be really lopsided. It'll stretch out really far on the communication side and then be all shrunken on the technology side.
Exactly right. And that visual is so powerful because it's instant feedback. You can see your strengths and weaknesses in a second. But the system goes deeper than just the shape. It assigns a numerical rating to the overall profile from 0 to 100.
This is the part that I found really fascinating, the index. Because this is where they connect it all back to the real world of degrees and diplomas. This is where that whole university versus experience debate gets a number put on it.
This is absolutely critical for transparency. They align that 0 to 100 rating to the Australian Qualifications Framework, the AQF. So, for example, a restaurant manager might have a skill code rating somewhere between 93 and 100. The system says that's a level 7.
And level 7 is equivalent to what?
Equivalent to a bachelor's degree.
That is wild. So you could be managing a restaurant for 10 years, you've never stepped foot in a university lecture hall in your life, but this system could look at your profile and say, hey, the complexity of what you do every day, the financial planning, the people management, the high-pressure problem solving, that is effectively a degree-level job.
Precisely. It validates the cognitive load of the work. And on the flip side, a crew coach at that same restaurant might be at a level 2, a rating of around 45, which is equivalent to a certificate 2 qualification. It puts a real numerical value on experience.
And the killer feature, if I can use some tech speak for a second, is what happens when you put the J.O.B code and the skill code together.
The matchup report. You literally overlay the worker's spider web on top of the job's spider web.
And you see the gaps instantly.
Or the surpluses, and that's so important. Usually we only look for the deficits. We only say, you're bad at this, you need to fix it. But this system highlights what they call talent mapping. Meaning, if the worker's web is way bigger than the job's web in a few areas, you probably have a bored employee, you have someone who is ready for a promotion or a bigger challenge, and now you have the data to prove it.
And if the numbers are negative, if the worker's web is smaller,
then you have a training gap. But it's not a vague, you need to do better kind of gap. It's specific. It says you are -2 points on digital technology. Okay, great. Now we know exactly what kind of training to provide.
that stops that old spray and pray approach to training where you just send everyone to a generic seminar on a Tuesday and hope something sticks.
Exactly. It creates an evidence-based conversation. But speaking of evidence, we need to talk about how a worker actually proves they have these skills, because it's one thing to say I'm a level 4, and it's another thing entirely to prove it.
Right. I'm a huge skeptic about self-reporting. I might think I'm a level 5 comedian, but my wife assures me I am a solid level 1. How do we stop this from just being a subjective opinion fest?
That brings us to the case study in the documents, which I absolutely loved. It's a company called Floors by Powell.
It sounds like a boutique cologne, but it's actually a flooring company.
And it's a great example of this system out in the wild. We're looking at a very specific role they've defined, the floor technology specialist.
Which, I have to say, sounds a lot fancier than floor layer.
Yeah,
But when you look at the skills required, the title is definitely earned.
it is. Let's look at the breakdown. The J.O.B code for this role requires technology at level 3. That means using advanced dust extraction and laser leveling equipment. It's not just a broom and a bucket. It requires communication at level 3, and that means being able to interpret the very different needs of, say, an interior designer versus a homeowner.
Oh, that's a tricky one. Talking to a designer who cares about aesthetics and flow versus a homeowner who just wants to know, will my dog's claws scratch this?
Yeah.
Requires two totally different languages here.
Exactly. And it requires problem solving at level 2, being able to identify recurring adhesive failures or subtle subfloor imperfections that could ruin the whole job.
Okay, so we have a character in this case study, an employee named Tom Samuel. How does Tom prove he can actually do all this? Does he have to sit a written exam on adhesive failures?
Not at all. And this is the learning in real time aspect, which is so cool. Tom uses an app on his phone called the Learning Catalyst while he is on the
So
job.
he's in the middle of doing the work and he pauses to what? Take a selfie with the floor?
Essentially, yes, but it's more structured. He captures evidence. He might take photos or short videos of him preparing the subfloor. He uploads it as a check-in.
Just level this concrete.
A little more formal than that. He links that piece of evidence to a specific skill, let's say planning and organizing. Then his supervisor, in this case the owner, Doug Powell, reviews that evidence.
So Doug is the validator. He gets a notification on his phone.
Yes. And Doug reviews the photo, but it goes deeper than that. The source material actually shows a validation log. Doug validates the evidence against a specific formal industry standard. The code is MSFF 2035, mechanically prepare surfaces.
Wow.
And he confirms that Tom didn't just do the task, but that the conversation they had on site confirmed that Tom understood the planning behind it.
That is that key connection the source mentioned earlier. Visualization plus conversation plus practice. It's not just the photo on its own. It's the fact that Doug and Tom talked about it, and Doug, as the expert, verified Tom's understanding.
And once it's verified, that little piece of data goes into Tom's backpack. It becomes a permanent, validated part of his skill code. He isn't just leveling a floor, he is banking a qualification record.
That is so empowering for Tom. I mean, instead of just trading his time for money, he's trading his time for money and a verified record of his growth.
That is the crucial shift in mindset. It turns the daily grind into long-term portable value. Usually when you leave a job, you leave your reputation behind, right? You have to start from scratch at the new place, proving you aren't an idiot.
Right.
But with this system, Tom takes his skill code with him. It's his property. It's portable value.
And the implications of this, they extend so far beyond just one guy and his floor. Let's get into the big so what for society. Because we started this whole deep dive with that stat about the 29% of the workforce with no formal qualifications.
This is about democratizing qualifications. It really is.
Yeah.
If we can use a system like this to recognize the skills of the invisible workforce, we can change lives. Suddenly, someone who has been a laborer for 20 years can prove they have the management and planning skills equivalent to a diploma holder.
That opens so many doors. That changes how they see themselves, and more importantly, how the market sees them. It changes the narrative from unskilled labor to proven skilled performance.
And it also directly addresses two other huge modern workplace issues: internal equity and psychosocial hazard.
Psychosocial hazards is a term we're hearing a lot more lately. It's becoming a massive compliance issue for companies. How does a skills app help with mental health and safety?
Well, think about what causes stress at work. A massive source of stress is perceived unfairness. Why is he getting paid more than me when I do all the real work? Why did she get the promotion when I was more qualified?
Ah, the classic water cooler grievance. It's the fuel for office toxicity.
It absolutely creates toxicity. But by linking pay and career progression to a transparent relative value, that 0 to 100 rating, you remove the mystery. You aren't paid less because the boss doesn't like you. You are paid according to the measured complexity of your skill code. If you want to earn more, here's the map. Here's exactly how to increase your rating.
It removes the favoritism, or at least the suspicion of favoritism. It makes the rules of the game visible to everyone.
Exactly. It ensures consistency in how roles are compensated based on the nature of the work, not the personality of the worker. And for the organization as a whole, this all leads to what the source calls the Workplace Performance Assurance Prospectus.
That sounds very, very official. What is a prospectus in this context?
Usually a prospectus is for investors, right? It's a document that says, here is why our company is valuable and you should invest in us.
Right.
This is a new kind of prospectus. It's a declaration that the organization understands its own human capital. It's a company saying, we don't just have people. We have a verified inventory of performance capability. We know what we're good at.
That is a huge competitive advantage. Instead of just saying, oh, we have a great team, You can actually say, our team operates at an average performance rating of 85, with a verified spike in complex problem solving.
It shifts the entire conversation away from recruitment fails and productivity stalls and toward an evidence-driven workforce.
It really feels like we're moving from an analog world to a digital one, from guessing and gut feel to knowing.
That is the perfect way to put it. We're moving from a world of binary competency, which is a blunt instrument, to the nuanced, high-definition world of performance.
So let's try and bring it all home. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the resume gap to the backpack, through the 14 universal skills, the spider webs of J.O.B codes and skill codes, and that real-world example of Tom and his floors.
I think if there is one single thing for you to take away from all this, it's that the language of work has been missing. For decades, we've been trying to communicate incredibly complex human value using outdated, static job titles and simple checklists.
And the 14 skills and the word pictures,
Yeah.
they provide a new alphabet.
A new shared alphabet. And this benefits everyone. The business gets productivity and real clarity. The manager gets hard evidence instead of just a gut feeling during a performance review. And the worker, who is the most important part of this equation, gets recognition and a portable badge of their actual ability.
It creates a system where learning is integrated into the work, not something you have to step away from work to go and do in a classroom for a week.
Work is the school.
I love that concept.
Oh.
We're sort of returning to who humans have always learned by doing, but we're finally building the digital infrastructure to capture and validate it.
Precisely.
Okay, so here is my final thought for you listening to this right now. I want you to mentally pull up your own job description. Or if you don't have one, just think about what you tell people you do at a dinner party, your little elevator pitch.
A dangerous exercise for some of us.
It is. But does that description, does it actually reflect your day-to-day reality? If you had to generate a skill code for yourself right now using those 14 skills we talked about, where is your spike? Are you a level 5 in problem solving, but maybe a level 1 in, I don't know, digital tech?
Yeah.
And be honest with yourself.
And I think even more importantly, can you prove it? Are you still relying on a degree you got 10 years ago to signal your worth? Or can you point to concrete evidence of your performance today?
That's the question. The backpack is on your back. It's time to unzip it and find out what's actually inside. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure, as always.
We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.